All right, we are live. Welcome back to the Redesign podcast. I'm your host, Tom Hobbs, and today joined by another very special guest, Mr. Sammy Dyer. How you going, brother?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Good?
It's good to be back, man.
Yeah.
I haven't podcasted in ages as well.
It's cool to do this in person too, hey?
Oh, it's a different vibe. Yeah, I love it.
It's so much different. We've just been, again, same as last episode, fucking around with the electronics and trying to work out both mics and headphones and all that stuff. And then got a little bit of feedback from some of you guys that listened about the echoiness. So I think that's probably because this side of the room, what you're seeing on camera, is fully soundproofed. Basically, everything else you can't see is not soundproof. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be soundproofing the rest of the room and hopefully improving the audio quality. But yeah, awesome to have you on, man. So for those of you guys that don't know, me and Sammy did a podcast. When was that? 2020?
8th of May, 2020.
8th of May, 2020, yeah. So that was a while ago. So some shit's probably happened since then.
Yeah.
Basically, give us a bit of a rundown on, I guess, who is Sammy, what you do. Obviously, you guys probably would have seen me tag him in pretty much every post I put up because he's either helping out with the gym or, helping out with all my content, videos, photo shoots and stuff like that. And obviously be a big part of Redesign HQ and what we're doing here on the content side of things. But give us a bit of an intro as to who Sammy is.
Sweet. So, as Tom said, I'm Sam or Sammy, whatever really. I'm a full-time worker at a supplement store, but I guess part-time content creator. I did have a business in content, but now I just really focus on helping others with it. So helping yourself, Tom, and a few others. Completely self-taught, and to be completely honest, like to be in this position as a content creator is completely different to where I was considering our last chat. As Tom said, it's the last couple of years have been completely different path from everything that I expected from where I was hoping to be back then to where I am now. I guess you understand all of that when we start talking.
So you were doing content stuff back then, no?
No, so I was studying PT.
You were too?
Yeah, so I was studying PT halfway through Cert 3, looking to do nutrition. And then after our conversation, touch base with Jacob Weatherly, and then everything changed from there.
Yeah.
I mean, the only content I was creating was my own Instagram stuff and what was Kirby's Food Adventures as well. So
right. So we spoke before you done stuff with Tom or after?
We were before, yeah. So I was with Jacob just before I started with Jacob at that time, and then I did 60DR October of 2020, I reckon it was.
Okay. So that's when you really started getting into your content stuff and the status social media?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. What made you not want to do PT back then, if we trace back to when we last spoke?
Well, I'm very big into fitness and stuff, have been ever since my weight loss transformation. When I started the PT and we got to the point of study where it was practicals, I hated it. I hated the point of training clients for assessments and then having to go and train myself. I couldn't handle being in the gym all day and then going to train myself. It took away the aspect of training where it was for me. And then from there, I just pulled the pin pretty much on the whole study. And there was so much going on in a good way in 2020 anyway, that like that year was so expansive in terms of the direction I took everything. I turned away from the PT and focused on the building, the status A media and the content stuff. So
cool.
Yeah.
So quit PT, or not quit PT, didn't pursue PT.
Yeah.
What made you then want to do the content side of things?
It was a pure thing of chance, really. So I was doing YouTube and stuff for myself. That was something that I've loved since I was like 9 years old anyway, doing a lot of gaming and stuff. But with the food page, it was my idea it was my plan with it to get into content creating photos and that kind of stuff when it was Kobe's to cook. I then transferred that into YouTube and met certain people in Adelaide who were fitness-based stuff, created a video for a few of them just for free and, just to experiment with it, which then led to Phoebes reaching out, being like, hey, can you do some photos and client-based content for me? I was like, yeah, sweet. And then I met Adam from The Voice, Adam Ludwig, and he became a very close friend, and I started doing photos and stuff for him. And then Phoebe and Adam both turned around saying, like, if you're going to do this stuff, we want to pay you. Can you get yourself a business name? an ABN in that, so we can do it all on officially or appropriately or whatever, legally, whatever the word is. And then from the minute Adam tagged me in a post, I had inquiries left, right, and center. Then Phoebes did the same. Then I had a bunch of fitness people reaching out, and then I did maybe 3 product-based shoots for Nutrition Warehouse, which is where I work full-time. And when I started posting them, I then had food clients from the food page reaching out, being like, yo, do you want to do some stuff for us? And then it just had 6 months straight. So it just went from 0 to 100 real quick. So
this was all back into 2020?
2020 and halfway through to 2021. So
Okay, cool. And this was all, when did you start the food page? A lot of people probably know you as the food dude as well.
So the food page started in, I reckon it was December 2019, which for those that don't know was called Kobe's Food Adventures. It was something that Kobe and I were meant to run together to help with his mental health and my mental health, where he would cook, I would take photos for it to help him build up a portfolio to hopefully get him back into the food industry. Him passing away is why I took it on for me to run on my own, but more so focusing on a food reviewing basis and reviewing burgers, that kind of stuff. And then, so that's how that started. And then it kind of evolved into what it is now. So,
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We love that food page. We love that food page. I went out on a day with you once. Where do we go? Went to that burger place in the city that
MK's,
and then Jenny's. I couldn't fucking keep up.
I think the only person, even Adam struggled to keep up.
Yeah.
So when Ads and I did it, we went to Jenny's again first, and I think I ordered 6 things and he ordered 3, and then we went to Stacks and we both finished Stacks, and we did a full Q&A there, and I ended up wanting to eat more and then tapped out because we both got to the gym and we were both throwing up. So, but I think there's only been one person who really kept up with me, which would have been Tommy Lane.
Yeah, Tommy.
And we both got to the end of that, and we were just so groggy. And
right. Yeah, cool.
I can't do it anymore though. I do it, but I don't eat the amount
as
anymore.
much. Yeah,
I can't stomach it.
For those who don't know, I'm currently coaching Sammy, so he's being very compliant to his deficit.
Trying.
No, you've been good. You've been good. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get into all the deep stuff as we get into this, but just sort of continuing with that. So now you're. What do you do now? So you mentioned Nutrition Warehouse. Obviously, you do content and stuff for myself. Where are you sort of at now? What are you doing? Plans moving forward with all that?
So I honestly couldn't even tell you what my plans are at the moment. I'm the manager of the store for Nutrition Warehouse. That kind of aligns with my degree as well in business, and that brings me a lot of value and love with what I do there. Truthfully, last year I lost a fair bit of passion for the business and the content creating side of things, and I'm at the point where it's re-sparking, and I still love it, but I've got to very much fine-tune the people I do the content with and make sure it truly aligns with what it is that I want to create, rather than just creating because they need it done, if that makes sense. So still kind of mapping everything out for this year, because there's been a pretty big change that's happened in the last week. So I've got to get that prioritized and sorted first before I map the rest out in terms of content and the business side of things. So yeah.
Cool. Well, it's a bloody honour to have you doing content for me and for the gym. We're gonna be some spicy content coming out. I'm excited.
And I think I'm gonna change up the way that I film and stuff and make it a bit not necessarily energetic, because I've got a pretty set style with the way I do, but I just want to expand that a little bit too, and not make it so dubstep 30-second heavy. Just make it a bit more expansive and kind of cater a different audience or appeal to a different audience as well. So just see how it goes.
Yeah, cool. Well, that works with the video that I messaged you about last night that I want to do, which is, I guess, more storytelling is basically that video.
And it's weird how much of a story you can tell, even if it is 15 seconds with content. And that's, we did it with the original launch video as well, and that was something that was very off the top of my head. And I've got ideas, but want the approach I want to make it more of a professional approach, but at the same time more of an experience rather than like you just do what I tell you to do. Have more involvement. So yeah, for
sure. Like we're after this we're gonna have a little bit of chat and plan the I guess the opening to the Redesign HQ video, and I'm like super keen to have that as sort of storytelling going through the journey. Like we did that little one in the garage, which turned out to be a false start in terms of opening the facility anyway, so that was fine. But yeah, like I've watched like the Christian videos and like stuff Matt Como does, and it's like just elicits so much emotion, which is fucking sick. So fucking keen for that. All right, let's go there. So if you guys listen to our first podcast, you know that Sammy's been through some shit in his life, and one of the reasons why I love having people like yourself on is, you know, the whole brand is Redesign, and like you've obviously redesigned your life that many fucking different ways and different aspects over the journey, so you're like the epitome of the message. So I guess give us as brief a rundown of, I guess, a bit of your past, and just to get the viewers and listeners up to date with that, and then we'll sort of dive more into, you know, what you've taken from that and how you've managed to push through that to the point where you're at now. So hit us with the backstory.
Yeah, easy. So it all started with my parents' divorce. Now, obviously, I didn't start redesigning my life from an 8-year-old or not 7-year-old or whatever I was, but a lot of the stuff that I went through as a teen stemmed from the trauma that I saw or that I gained from, I guess, as a kid. So with my parents divorcing, I moved in with my mum. Now, to keep it brief, there's a lot of issues on a mental level with her in terms of schizophrenia and stuff, like just a lot that's there. And, you know, I saw from the age of, I guess, 8 to 11, there was things along the lines of drugs that I was around, people being bashed, knives being swung at myself, my brother, you know, that kind of stuff, sexual assaults, watching my dad get bashed and neighbours having to try and be there to protect, you know, my dad and that kind of stuff. And when I got to high school, when we were going through like the sex ed and I guess more of the Christian side of things, and I guess just the overall personal development that you kind of face in high school, I really started to realise, I guess, the things that I was going through. While all of that was happening and I was developing as a person, I also was still facing the challenges of what mum was putting myself through on an emotional level. And then, kind of spiraled me into a pretty serious depression, fueled that depression with food, and just became an absolute monster in terms of the way I ate and put on a lot of weight there. Always involved in sport and that kind of stuff, and as it developed, I was pretty good at soccer, but then had a lot of injuries, that kind of stuff, based off of my size. Being a shorter dude, I'm 5'7", but I always say that I'm around 5'1", just for the comic side of it. But I was, you know, dislocating knees, ankles breaking just from pure stress of the size and stress on the joints. So that was impacting mental health as well, because I obviously wasn't playing sport, which was what was my biggest release at the time. Then I started self-harming, survived a suicide attempt at 16, and then was going to attempt again in my first year out of high school. So when I was my first year in uni, and that's when I realised that it was time for me to change. To keep it brief on how that came about was I was no longer playing soccer due to glandular fever. So I was coaching. The team that I was coaching had Kobe in it, and Kobe was the only one out of the full team that wasn't calling me a thing along the lines of beach whale, that kind of stuff. You know, pretty heavy bullying stuff, and for someone who was so insecure, was taking a beating from it. At the same time, I had my partner at the time who cheated on me, and we went to school. I went to uni, and it was like an icebreaker kind of game where I've explained it before, but like you would wear Jehovah's Witness as like a name badge, and I would wear teenage male that's obese or whatever as a name badge, and you as Tom would treat me as the name badge, and me as Sam would treat you as the name badge. And as a wrap up, we had to try and explain why we thought we were being taught that way as a level of stereotype. And a girl in the class, she got obese teenage male, and while looking me dead in the eye was like, they're fat, they stink, they shouldn't leave the house. And although it probably wasn't her intention to direct it at me, because she was looking at me that entire sentence, I took that pretty personally. Went home to basically end my life, had blades, Panadols, or medications, ropes, everything to get rid of myself. And I put music on, and I had a song by Educate called End This Way pop up, and I never heard it. And for some reason, I decided to stop and actually listen to it, and put everything else that I was intending to do on hold for 2 minutes, and the song's now tattooed on my chest. So basically the chorus says, when you feel like stopping and your legs give way, just remember it doesn't have to end this way. And from that point I was like, yeah, shit, like, don't kill yourself based off of the perception of others. That's not how I thought it at the time, but that's how I see it now. And next morning woke up, walked out to Dad and said, yep, I want to lose weight. That's the first step for me to find happiness, is to be happy within the body that I'm in. And then that's where that started. Ended up losing 47.5 kilos in 16 months or something along those lines. It wasn't like a consistent loss. It was like, had its periods where I had a 2-week relationship, which ended because she told me I couldn't be trusted because I was at uni, and I was like, okay. And then, yeah, back into that, I fell into another relationship, which went for 18 months. Things were still pretty nasty in the sense of what I was dealing with from my mum in terms of emotional abuse and that kind of stuff. And that ultimately led up to me blocking my mum. So 2016 Boxing Day was the last time I saw my mum, and up until 2019 was also the last time I saw my sister. And basically mum had threatened to kill my ex at the time, and all of that kind of stuff. Based off of me apparently not inviting her to her 21st birthday, which I never actually organised because I actually didn't want one. And it just snowballed from there for the few weeks from New Year's leading up to my birthday, to the point that I cut her off. But then that also took a huge toll on the relationship, to the point that we dated for an extra 9 months, but intimacy wasn't there. We just weren't connecting, that kind of stuff. We went separate ways. At the time, there was a level of communication in the sense that she broke up with me via email, telling me that I was no longer attractive, while I was shredding, and in my eyes I was the best I ever looked. So I was a little bit stunned by that, especially considering there was no sexual intimacy happening in that. So I took that to heart for maybe an hour, which is kind of a funny bounce back from the breakup, but that's what happened there. But at the same time, all of that was going on, I was in uni at the back end, so literally the last 2 or 3 weeks of uni of sport and rec, already working in the industry for UniSA, and then we broke up, and then half an hour after the breakup happened, I got a second job in the industry at Belgravia Leisure. So I was within the sport and rec facilities kind of area, which is where I wanted to be, which was great. And then turned into a, lack of a better word, a bit of a slut. I went 9 months without any kind of intimacy, and truthfully, I would do anything and everything possible to try and get that from someone else, but it was never the same person. And that kind of snowballed across that year. So that was 2017, so I was 21 at the time. And then 2018, I left UniSA Sport. There was no longer a path for me to kind of move up in that position. So I made the decision to focus with Belgravia Leisure. Stayed with them for a year, all still while I guess facing the stuff with my mum, which just kept never ending really, and just kept getting worse and worse. Then started taking the bodybuilding training real seriously, that kind of stuff, because I had a head injury with soccer, which nearly killed me in 2017 as well. So I can't actually, not meant to play team sports anymore because of the risk of the head injury stuff. So that went all the way through 2018, and I was in a really, really good spot. Landed what I thought was my dream job in 2019 with Basketball SA as a stadium manager. Within 2 weeks, turned a facility around 20k, so it was in an $8,000 or $12,000 a month loss, turned it into an $8,000 profit or $12,000 profit. I can always get the numbers mixed up, which then resulted to me becoming an area manager. Then I started managing 4 stadiums with 7 staff, and with sport being a 24/7 thing pretty much, and 7 day a week. was working 110-hour minimum fortnights for scraps, really. And then Mother's Day hit, and I basically, like, the 2019 was like the biggest shit show of my life, but probably the most needed year that I need to be where I'm at now. So I received a call on the Sunday on Mother's Day from my sister being like, yo, I've been bashed or whatever. Can you come see me? And I received that call so many times from my mum that I instantly was like, it's not true. It's an attention grab to get me to go and see them. So I was like, yeah, I'll come see you. Like, I hope you're all right or whatever. Hung up, kind of put it behind me because I was like, I've heard it 1,000,001 times before. Then the police called me the next day being like, yo, like, we actually need you to come in and, you know, sign a few things for your sister. She was, you know, hit and stuff. And I was like, fuck, so it's true? And they're like, yeah, no, it's true. And I was like, okay, all right. So had to tell work, went and sorted that out. So that was the first time I saw my sister since 2016, was in 2019. And at the time, I really wasn't sure what I was going into. Like, I didn't know how Rose was going to react because I didn't know what she was told into why I'd kind of situated myself away from herself and mum. I was in a very weird place in the sense of, like, I was in my first ever full-time job, and it was a heavy responsibility job, like an area manager in sport. As I said, it's a lot of hours. So I didn't know where I was going, and financially I wasn't in a good spot. So I was offered to take, you know, custody of her then and then, and I was like just thrown. So I said no because I just wasn't financially viable. I didn't have a place where I lived on my own, so there was no room for Rose in that house as well. There's a bunch of other like circumstances around that which I'll leave out of it. And then yes, the next day I received a call from a friend of mine saying, yo, can you check in on Kobe? Kobe's not doing very well. He's kind of sent me a photo in the bath and thought it was a bit weird, and I was like, yeah, I'll check in. And I flicked him a message and said, are you alright, man? Like, I know I haven't seen you for a while, or how you going? And he just sent me a photo, a pretty graphic photo of that in the bath with like blood everywhere. And I just went, fuck, like, called his mum, like, yo, you need to get home in like the next 10 minutes, like, get an ambulance there, whatever, do whatever you can, get there. It's serious. And she was like, for you to be saying that, like, all right, I'll fucking do it. So yeah, he'd attempted there. A Thursday of the same week, my granddad on my dad's side was terminal, so became terminal. I wasn't really told that in the sense of like, I was that busy, so when I was getting home, Dad was asleep, you know, my brother was asleep, so then I'd go home and sleep, and by the time they'd woken up, I'd already left for work again. So I wasn't communicated that to, just purely based off of me not being around, and it was something that it was expressed at a later date that they wanted to express it to me in person, but it just, the time just kept obviously falling behind us. So that was, yeah, the 23rd of May. And then 24th of May, with obviously everything that had gone on that week, my company, or the company that I worked with, said, yo, we want to give you a few days off. You're clearly going through a lot. You've done so much for us already. Have a couple days. I was like, fucking beauty. I called Kobe on the Friday, the 24th, and was like, yo, what are you doing this weekend? I haven't seen you since I've started full-time work, which, you know, at the time was the longest time we'd probably ever gone without seeing each other for probably 7 years. And I was like, you free? And he's like, yeah, I'm not free tonight. Oh, I'm not free tomorrow as in the Saturday, but I am free the Sunday. Like, I'd like you to meet my partner and everything. And I was like, done, man. Name a time, place, I'll be there. We'll get food after. And then I was bored in the afternoon. And this is the hardest part, right? Because this part still fucking eats me up. But I was bored in the afternoon. I was like, yeah, what are you doing tonight? Because I know you said you're not free tomorrow, and I've got refereeing and that kind of stuff tomorrow. So, like, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, I'm at Seaton. Like, so if you want to come down, come down. Now, my lack of area knowledge or geography in South Australia, I thought Seaton was Seaford, which was 2 hours away, where Seaton's was literally half an hour from where I lived. And I said no. I was like, oh, sorry, bro, that's just too far for me to go, without realising it was Seaton, which is, yeah, you know, half hour. And I was like, we'll still see you Sunday, like, is what it is. And then, yeah, I woke up the next morning, I thought everything was fine, went to soccer. I got there at about 9:45 and put my phone away straight away, because that day I was refereeing like 2 games in the morning and then linesman, so another form of refereeing in the last game. So from 9:45 right up until 5:30, my phone was, you know, in my bag. Didn't check it at any halftime break or whatever. When I checked it, I had about 40 messages on Facebook, DMs coming out of my ears, and I had about 6 missed calls from a number I had no idea who it was. When I called the number back, it was a voice there was like a voice bank from someone being like, yo, this is my name, like, like usual voice messages, like, sorry, I can't get to the phone right now, give us a call, this is who I am. And I was like, why does that person have my number? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And I was like, okay, like, whatever. I went and checked my Facebook notifications, and the first message I saw was from someone that I'm no longer a friend with, and it was, I'm sorry for your loss. And I was like, what? Like, just, I was just like, what loss? Like, I was trying to put two and two together. Like, I'd just been out in the sun all day, and I was like really, really lost for it all. And then I checked Facebook, and before I could even go to the notifications, the first thing I saw was a post from Channel 7 saying a guy had been shot in the chest by police. And instead of like saying the incident, it had a photo of him, and it was Kobe. And I then put two and two together of everything and was like, fuck, like no wonder every single person was trying to contact me, because everyone knew how close we were. I decided to straight away pack my shit up and go home. I was like, I'm not going to sit there and talk, because I was at a soccer field where we grew up together. Everyone there knew him and I together as like being really close mates. I went home. Dad wasn't home, so I called him and said, hey, like, can you get home? I'm like, just need some help. When I told him, and he was like, nah, bullshit. And I was like, Dad, I'm serious. Like, he's been shot. Like, he's dead. I then tried to call Belle, which is his mum, and it was just screams on the phone, given as expected kind of thing. And yeah, it was just a time that was rough. Like, I in that week, I went from not seeing my sister, being in my dream job, all of that, to potentially taking custody of her best mate passing away, granddad being terminal, while still trying to manage 4 facilities in my first ever major role, and fresh at that. Like, I'd only been there for 2 months or so, and it sucked, truthfully. Like, I thought I was on top of the world at the start of that year, and then just kind of crumbled. I didn't train that week at all. Went from eating pretty clean and tracking food and all of that to just not eating at all. I reckon I dropped 4 or 5 kilos for that week, because I just wasn't training, wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping, just trying to figure out what the hell had happened. And then, yeah, Kobe's, hold on. So before that point, before Kobe's funeral, I felt really, really unwell, right? For the full week and a half before his funeral, I had felt extremely unwell, and I just wasn't sure why. Like, it was just unexplained, like it wasn't like I was starved or anything like that. I went and spoke to Belle, and she's like, it could be something trying to tell you that there's something major is going to happen. Like, you don't really know. So I went home that night and kind of sat on it, and then Dad come in and was like, yeah, there's a letter from Basketball SA here from you. And I was like, why have they sent me a letter without kind of communicating something to me? I've been there. And it was a letter of redundancy. And I was like, fuck, like, what the fuck? Like, so this letter of redundancy came about because they decided to do a full business restructure, and they wanted to do the full business restructure around me being there because of the success I had, without telling me that that's what they were doing. And then they tried to offer me the same job with a 5K pay cut. So from like 50K managing 4 stadiums to a 45K job managing 5 stadiums. And as a northerner, growing up in Craigmore, Elizabeth area, they tried to put me in Morpeth Vale, and I was like, bruh, like, really?
2 hours away.
Yeah, I was like, not a chance. So I rejected it, and they were like, well, what are you going to do? We can't pay you. You've got no annual leave there. You're on probation or whatever. I was at this point, I really don't care. Like, you're losing me. It's not a loss. I can get a job anyway. I'll be fine. Then I applied for Derrimets, full-time night shift there. First week in, granddad passed. And then, so that was like maybe 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks after Kobe had passed. And then it all went and down quick. So I went from working day shift, eating same times every day, strict like times eating, because my whole life was like, I'm going to be a bodybuilder and all that. So then I went to working night shift, where I'd wake up at 8:30 p.m. instead of getting ready for bed. I'd start work at 10 p.m. and finish at 6 a.m. rather than getting up at 6 a.m. So doing that on top of the already trauma that I'd had with Kobe and my sister, and then granddad passing away, I went from 89 kilos to 79 or 80 in 5 days. Every meal I ate, every bit of water I consumed, I'd throw up within 30 seconds. Got to the end of that week, couldn't even hold my body weight in my legs anymore. And the doctor was like, yo, you either quit or you die. Take it or leave it. And I was like, fuck. All right. Like, so I reached out to my area manager. She was a manager at the time. I said, yo, I've got to quit. Like, this is what's happened. And she tried to force me to stay. Said she would offer me other positions and all of that. But I think it was empty promises. And I kind of called her out on that. And I said to her, like, look, you got to understand, I was interviewed to be manager of this facility, not a full-time night shift guy. Like, I've got a business degree. Like, I know what I'm doing when it comes to managing facilities. And then, straight away, she was like, all right, you could leave, just because I said that to her. And I said, like, I'm not the guy to be on night shift, but I was happy to take it at the time based off of not having a job. Then I quit, and doctors basically said, don't train for 6 to 8 weeks. Don't, exercise, let your body recover, because otherwise you'll just end up in a really bad place. And that's what I did. So went 6 to 8 weeks without training or anything like that. Week 2 of that 6 weeks, my uncle passed away, which was like my mum's it was my great uncle, but it was my mum's uncle. So it wasn't like a huge loss, but like seeing my sister and the rest of that family go through it, I was like, fuck, like, really? Like, am I going to get another break here? 2 weeks or 3 weeks after that, my childhood nanny then passed away as well. So she like looked after me growing up. So she passed away, and seeing my neighbors and all of that go through that, I was like, in 2019, like, there's got to be something good to come from it, because I kind of wiped out the first 4 months of it that were so good. I was like, it's just nothing. And then, I got to the end of it, was part of the burial for Kobe. So I was the pallbearer, took him to the car. That was when it was the most relevant to me that he was gone, because I was like, fuck, like, I've actually just carried him now. And then, it was part of the burial and that kind of stuff, which was super honored to be a part of, because Kobe and I's relationship was super tight. Like, I was the father figure to him for what he said. He was the father figure. So that was like 2019 wrapped up. Start of 2020, I went back to Belgravia Leisure for just a casual role, try and get my mental health back on track, all of that, which then instantly became part-time because of the work experience I had with him already. Then I had a high school friend commit suicide as well at the start of 2020. And then that would pretty much lead up to almost May 2020, where you and I
did the podcast.
had the podcast. And 2020, when I buried Kobe at his site, I made a promise to him that I would, in 2020 and beyond, all I'd do was do the things that made me happy. And I didn't know what made me happy at the time, which is why I started the food page, to try and find some kind of way to remember him while working on myself. So the content, the photos, that kind of stuff. Doing YouTube every 3 or 4 days, doing a video, eating like an absolute fat fuck, like eating like Super Shake Sunday. Oh, I mean, you might have seen the Super Shake Sundays. They were good fun. Started a podcast, and was talking some real deep internal level stuff from my end there, and had a few people reach out saying that I gave them a different perspective. And so 2020, like I said, was a level of expansion that I didn't expect. I started using what I'd gone through to fuel my future, and using it more of as like I can see what I can go through on a mental, but what can I put myself through to achieve things. And then I had a lot of good feedback from that. And then did your podcast. Jacob reached out to me, like, yo, can I call you? Without realizing what that call actually was, which then ended up me being in the Journey of Strength, which for me, like, at that point in time, I was the most I don't know if anti is the right, I was the most skeptical about meditations, journaling.
We've all been there.
We've all been there, and I went into that being like, I'd been through so much shit and overcome it. Like, I don't need this guidance. And then Jacob was like, oh, I'm seeing through you, man. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'll lean in. And yeah, leaned in, got into week 4 of the 12 week, and I'd achieved everything that I'd expected and more. And then he was like, what is it that you actually want to do, and what is it that you're good at? And I was like, I'm not too bad with a camera. I'm like, I don't know how to teach people that, but I'm not too bad with it. And he's like, can you earn money from it for now while you're casual? And I was like, I am. And he's like, start a business. Like, why are you not doing that if you are earning money? And then that's how that happened. And then 2 weeks later, Tom Clark popped up being like, oh, I see you've got a few mutual connections with me, mate. And I was like, yeah, I do. And then he was like, yeah, so who have you worked with? And I was like, I've been told to speak to you from Hobbsy, and Phoebe's actually told me to speak to you as well. And I'm doing work with Jake. And he's like, yeah, right. So what is it that you actually do? And I was like, I don't even know yet. And he's like, all right, well, just, yeah, we'll figure that out, and we'll have some chats at a later date and see what happened. And then, yeah, like that, there was that. The Journey of Strengths finished. I was 20 weeks into a 43-week shred with Radu. I was working part-time, trying to manage all my clients and figure all that out, trying to reconnect with my sister and build that relationship back up. There was something else that I was doing, like the podcast, like YouTube, like the food stuff, all of that was going really, really well. And then, yeah, Tom was like, let's have a chat. Had a chat with him, and he gave me a lot of good insight about where I could get the business. So then I jumped into 60DR, and then burnt myself out because I was doing that much while in a deficit as well. Being in a deficit for 42 weeks definitely isn't ideal. Yeah, it wasn't ideal. And then, yeah, ran myself into the ground. I took a lot away from the 60DR, obviously. Like, we all know how huge that is. But I failed to implement it. Like, looking back at it now, I was that tired and burnt out to the point I was falling asleep in calls with him. Because I was just, I was like in deficit. Then I started working full-time with Nutrition Warehouse halfway through that as well. So I just got to the point where I had to slow down and drop something. So YouTube went first, then podcast went, because I was like, I don't feel like I'm making the impact that I need to make there. I kept the food page based off the food page being something that I used to keep Kobe with me, which changed last year. So this is like the back end of 2020, and yeah, I just got to the point where I had 2 days off a week. I was booked out with clients. Then I'd edit all week after work, try and train, try and eat. Like, I just completely lost myself, to be honest. And yeah, got to a real big point of I wouldn't say I was depressed or anything, but I just failed to look after myself. Very much masculine, do 101 things, find out what it is that I wanted to do without actually addressing everything that I learned with Jacob in terms of meditations, all of that, slowing down, accepting or rewarding yourself for the things you have achieved, which I still struggle to do with now. I do 1,000,001 things or try and do so many things, and just like, cool, done that. Next thing, rather than be like, crack a beer or something for once, like, actually reward myself. So yeah, so I got to halfway through, say, last year, and in a relationship as well, and first like relationship since the one where I'd lost all the weight and cut off my mum and stuff. So trying to balance that after 2020, where I was doing 1,000,001 things and still trying to feel like that was the lifestyle I had to live to be successful and get somewhere, trying to manage a relationship with someone who's a carer, or who was a carer but studying and then is going into paramedics, where it's a complete different structure to the life that I live, that kind of stuff. And got to the back end of last year, and I again was so caught up in the masculine that I just burnt myself out, didn't address my emotions the way I felt, stopped communicating, all of that. Started working with you, had one conversation with you about like meditations and that kind of stuff, and I was like, yeah, haven't done anything, I just need a break, rather than being like, I should probably do it and actually address the shit. That break came in Queensland, and I spent maybe an hour a day on my phone and with the break, and realised how disconnected I was from, well, one, Chelsea, but like my sister, my friends, everything. I just was completely in a complete level of disconnect, and made the call to, like all clients that were pre-booking, I was like, nah, like take your money back, not interested. Like I've got a lot of shit that I've got to kind of sort out. I come back that trip and jumped into the Journey of Strength group that we have with Jake, and I went live for about 15 minutes, and I was like, I don't know who the fuck I am anymore. Like I don't know what to do. I'm struggling, all of this, and just kind of like started talking. And as I started talking about it, as you do when you open up, you feel a weight come off your shoulders, and I was like, yeah, there he is again. Like it's starting to click back in. And so then I committed to this year 2 ice baths or 2 cold showers a week minimum, 5 meditation sessions a week minimum, that kind of stuff to get myself recalibrated. And actually said to Jacob this morning that like if I hadn't started doing that post Queensland, I then wouldn't be in the position I am right now to be mentally prepared, emotionally prepared to take my sister in with custody, which is literally what happened last night. It's been in the process for like 3 weeks with going to legal meetings, addressing certain situations with my dad who works in that industry, trying to maintain my sister's sanity and deal with her carer or former carer or guardian and the way that she handles things, and trying to like assess things differently. And yeah, like it's been a lot, but at the same time, like there's been so many learnings and everything, and you know, the full like hero's journey. Like I've gone so many loops in the last like 6 months, let alone like 3 years or 2 years since we last spoke. So yeah, it's been a lot.
I love that we started this with like, all right, we'll give you the short version. It's like 41 minutes in.
Oh shit, really?
That's fucking killer.
It was short until 2019. It's so hard to keep that under 5 minutes.
No. I think that's, I mean, yeah, just gives everyone insight into. Yeah. Honestly, I listen to that and I'm like, I don't know, that's the 4th or 5th time I've heard that, but it's just like still amazing that you're sitting here as like upbeat and shit. Yeah. That you are, and like it's not just putting it on for the podcast. Like
yeah, I have my days.
Of course,
like as expected, but I found I use a lot of humor, and I don't use it towards myself because I'm insecure. You know, like a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm fat," but they actually feel that way. Like I take the piss out of my height because like it's just I'm very reflective of anything that gets said to me, kind of thing. So like I'm accepting of a lot. I take on a lot. I hear a lot feedback. Like I'm just open. Yeah. I'd rather be bubbly and energetic because although everything that I have faced from 7 up until 20, how old am I? 25? Well, I'm 26 now, but yeah, 25, 26. All of that I wouldn't be the level of confident, I wouldn't be the level of accepting, expansive, or like understanding all of that now if I didn't face that shit, as much as it sucked. And it still cripples me some days, and some days, like the last week's been really challenging and that kind of stuff. Like I've seen it for what it can do for me rather than what it's like impacting me for. Like it's more about what I'm learning. So yeah.
Fucking yeah. Like speechless.
It's probably lucky that I have been meditating and stuff, because if we had the conversation in 2020 in person, I would have been a crippled, different, like just tissues everywhere kind of thing. And it still does bring me a lot of emotion, but I'm at a point of acceptance with it. It's happened for that reason, for me to grow. So yeah,
it's never about like, let alone the fucking stuff you've been through, like it's never about just dismissing it and thinking positive all the time. So like, you're gonna have your days, couple of days where you just have to sit in it and you need to allow yourself. Like it's, some people can go too far the other way. It's like you feel the emotion come up and you're like, no, like positive, like that can be just as detrimental.
Yeah.
Because my like main question is, like you mentioned, you had those few self-harm attempts way back. Did any of that come up after like your 2019, like after all that stuff had happened? Yeah. Like, did you ever get to that point again?
Yeah, so after losing my job quitting my job with Deramits, and when my uncle then passed, not working for the first time in my life, since I was 16, was rough. And having to not exercise to get a release was even worse. And I sat there one night, I'd messaged Nat, Mother Nat, whoever, most people would know who I'm referring to when I say that, if you know me. I'd sat there one night and was like, I put a story up out of emotion, being like, I hope I'm with you soon, Kobe, sooner rather than later, and turned my phone off. Probably wasn't the smartest move reflecting on it, considering the following and the amount of people that were aware of what had just happened through Instagram. And I sat there with the full intention to be with Kobe from that point onwards, and it just so happened that Nat had picked up on the story, picked up on the fact that I wasn't answering my phone, and then rocked up, walked into my room and was like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't tell us you were struggling or whatever. I think that everyone knew I was, but I didn't actually communicate it. And then, she pretty much just held me for an hour, being like, please don't do this. Like, obviously it sucks and stuff, which I was really lucky to have Nat at that point, because Nat had lost a really close friend of hers, and being my first significant losses, being my two most important people or most significant people in my life from a friendship and family point of view, it was rough. So she came down and fueled me with Macca's. We went to Macca's and sat at Elizabeth Macca's, out of all places, to make you feel better. Sat at Elizabeth Macca's smashing Oreo McFlurries with me, and made that level of commitment to start working on myself again and find my groove with that. So although it didn't happen instantly, I had to try and find things I was grateful for and still there for. And we did this thing where every morning she would message me, I'd respond with the things that I was grateful for, and try and re-spark that, I guess, positive energy towards myself, or just towards life, not necessarily myself. And that was the stemming point up until the burial, where I was like, I've got to find the positive and then find something to branch out away from the bedroom. So that's what I find fucking amazing. Like, hence the question that even after all of that, like, you still didn't get to that point, like, where you know what I mean, like, and that's just fucking unbelievable that you were able to work through that to, like, now be who you are today. And I think now, with all the level of inner work that I've done and will continue to do, if I ever got to that point of being that bad again, that thought, although, like, as part of, like, the chemical imbalance that depression is, like, the thought will probably pop up. It'll never get to the point where I actually sit down and be like, I'm doing this, and be like, cool, I can address this through this and this, with meditations and actually looking after yourself. I've got a partner in Chelsea who is the most supportive and incredible woman that I've ever had in my life, which is, like, I won't say, like, weird in a bad way, but I always followed the older people because I lacked that connection from mum, but she's very much played a part in that. And I've now, for the first time, well, not for the first time, but I feel like I've got such a huge family connection since all of it too. So Chelsea's family are so important to me, and I've finally found an important sense of family through her that I've now rekindled with my dad and my brother. Well, improving with my brother, and then obviously to the point that I've got my sister in. And the last, like, 6 months, although I probably haven't been the most Sam version of myself, like, I haven't been my best version, I've had someone to still remind me of what I am capable of and remind me of the person that I can be, and be so supportive on such a huge level that, like, I'm content, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, but I finally have a level of, like, almost insurance and safety with someone, whereas I chased that in 101 different people when I was single, and because I didn't have that connection with family and stuff, I try and chase that, finally find a spark and then avoid it and run. And, like, you know, but I feel I've got that finally, which is cool. Like, I don't even know how else to process that.
Sometimes, like, there's no words to explain it.
Like, it's different. Like, and I realized it listening to you and ads this morning when I was walking and hearing how you guys communicate, and I was like, that is Chelsea and I, but on, like, a level of our communications more like, I wouldn't say banter, but it's just a different energy. Which, again, like, it's matches energetic vibes, but like, yeah, it's a complete different level because I've obviously gone through a lot of inner stuff and self-work around what I've been through, where Chelsea's gone through a lot, but she hasn't quite gone to that stage, but she's still very understanding where I'm at, and she's kind of going through that kind of transition of self-help, or not self-help, but inner work stuff now too. So it's, like it's, I'm happy.
Yeah.
So
it seems like from the outside, like I talk about this with clients, like your low, like your baseline is now like up here.
Yeah.
Whereas before your low might have been down here. So even if you're like at your lowest point, at least like you said, you sit in that and honor it, but like you have awareness, like, okay, like I'm not doing the best. I'm like, now I can reach out to Chelsea, or like you can reach out to me or Jake, or, you know, you got that support network now of these blokes that will happily come and chat with you.
And even my immediate friendship group, like Jackson's not the biggest talker, like he'd probably be my closest mate at the moment. He's not the biggest like let's address it, but he's the biggest like, all right, you know that you know how to feel better and you know what you need to do, but let's at least hang out and get that social need out so we can hang out and just at least address that, so you at least feel in a better mindset for then you to go home and then address it on your own terms, which is probably really, really important. Where I could go to Tommy and be like, yo, I need to chat, and Tommy would be like, cool, let's sit down. You know what I mean? And then Adam, like someone like Adam, who is significantly younger, he's very much like he can do both. So I don't see Adam or reach out to him as much, like his music's taking off and that kind of stuff. But if I was ever to be like, yo, you got 10 minutes, or if he was to be like, yo, have you got 10 minutes, like we could have that call and we can catch up and kind of relate. So I've got like immediate friendship, I've got Chelsea, and then I've got people like yourself, like you're obviously more of my fitness coach, but like I can reach out to you. I dare say I could even reach out to Tom Clark and have the conversation as well. And then even just the full network that I've built from that, like Soph, Tamani, John, Sophie G, Brett, Dill, like everyone that I've connected with from Tom, like, I mean, like shit, Adzi even, like, you know, like
everyone in that little fraternity.
It's a different level, and it's so heart-centered, like best interests at heart all time, like, but it's not like, oh, I'm just going to sugarcoat it so you feel better. It's like, no, I'll call you out on your bullshit if you need to be called out on, but we will help you with it as well. So it's your environment. Like, it's often the cliche, like people you surround yourself with, but it's fucking true. And like you said, you can have, like, I've got the same thing, like some mates I will go to have these deep chats if I'm feeling like arse, but other chats, my way of feeling better is to go and hang out at the pub with them and talk sport. Like you need those different people to address different parts for you. So it sounds like that's kind of what. How do you feel about Tom Brady retiring? So random, but I saw that this morning, and I was like, trying to make me cry now. Fucking hell. Well, I don't know if I don't know what the update is, because he's just gonna go to Tom Brady. Fucking hell. I gotta check Facebook. Because I seen a post this morning with him all of his rings, and I was like, hold on, why? Like, it's not Super Bowl time, is it? Hold on. Or is it like around the corner? Yeah, it's Super Bowl's in a couple of weeks. Oh. Did you see the halftime show lineup for that? Yeah, Eminem, Dre. Bro, I'd pay just for that. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, basically, like there was all these like leaks that he was retiring, but then his dad and agent came out and said he's not. So I don't think there's an update. Oh, gee. Apparently, Tom Brady's reportedly pissed his retirement was leaked by media before he could announce it. So I dare say he is, but he hasn't actually come out and said it. Yeah. Sorry to do that to you. You were the one person that I knew I could ask, because I know how much you love the NFL, and I was like, I wonder what's actually happening there. I don't know why it popped into my mind, well, there you go. That conversation. But yeah, I mean, he's had a fucking good career, eh? It's like, it's always sad when you see one of your role models leave, but like, I mean, fucking hell, it's not the world, is it? I remember my first soccer role model retiring, and I was like in tears. And then like the following 2 years, my other two also left, because there was like a full Chelsea era where they were like the main three, and I was like, motherfucker. Like, who's that, like Lampard and stuff? Lampard, JT, and Drogba. Like all three of them were like my childhood basically. So some people like Ads only just starting to understand. Like, for example, like, so Kobe Bryant, like when it was his 2 years, like
anniversary the other day when he passed away.
Yeah.
But I was very early in our relationship.
Yeah.
And like, I was a fucking mess. And like, it's something that's very hard to explain to someone that doesn't understand sport at that level. She was like super like comforting and like, but she even told me the other day, she's like, yeah, I was really confused why you're so upset over like this dude playing basketball you never met. I was like, yeah, you just don't understand. Like, it's like, got this tattoo here, but yeah, I don't know what it is, whether it's just, you know, you have those idols or people you look up to and they just help drive you and motivate you, and you can always like, I always feel better if I was to watch him play or watch Tom play or like now it's like Christian Guzman and stuff like that with Alpha Land. It's like I always feel better and feel driven. So I think it's important to have
See, that's like models. I've kind of moved away from the full sport. I mean, I'll always support Chelsea. It's tattooed on my chest. Like, kind of can't not support
You're
them.
A lifer.
And that's like, for me, that's more of a family-based thing. But it's weird as a 26-year-old to admit this, but like I get a lot out of the Sidemen. Yeah. You know, like KSI, like all of those guys. I grew up watching them, and I mean they're all my age or our age, but to see them kind of transition to be like gaming to now they've got like food hobbies, they've got alcohol, like I just get a lot. It's not even like I want to be like them. It's like I just get a lot out of it. Yeah. It just brings me like a level of
entertainment, or is it that as well
entertainment as well as like, like if they can do a lot of stuff, or like obviously there's 7 of them, like there's only 1 of me, but like if they can expand and like go from one thing to another, there's no reason I can't. I mean, it's kind of similar to me going from sport and rec management, PT, and like working in gyms to all of a sudden randomly be like, yo, I've got a photography business. Like, you know, there's no one level of commitment that you have to make just because you've got a degree or whatever. Like, that's where I've kind of, because they've always been YouTubers, but now they've, like, you see a lot of the YouTubers that are at the back end of their YouTubing career branching out, and like, I already have a lot of interest. Like, I'm a fat kid at heart and I'll eat everything under the sun, but now I'm like, well, maybe I could understand ingredients more and actually cook, and or I could, you know, work in a food shop, or I could focus on content creating and marketing. Like, it turns out I'm really good at local area marketing at my job. Like, it's like I don't know, I just caught a lot of inspiration from them, in the sense of like, you don't have to sit stagnant.
No,
you know?
fucking oath.
But I mean, I also haven't been stagnant for the last 2 years. I've done so many different things, but like I'm realizing like it's
what you actually want to do.
Yeah, like it's
finding what you want to do.
Yeah, rather than doing all of it at once, it's more about like pacing myself this time, because I don't end up like a walking zombie and can't hold like body weight in my legs. And,
No, I get. Fuck. The amount of conversations I overhear or you see it all the time, people complaining about their job, and like in their 30s or 40s. And they've done like the traditional route, like school, uni, degree, and then this job for like their whole life. But then all they do is fucking complain about it. Yeah. But the fear is like, oh, I've invested all this money, all this time, worked my way up in this business. So it's like they put the time they invested ahead of what they actually want to do. And there's something I always, like, I tried the uni thing, like dropped out 3 times and all that kind of stuff. Like, I tried that, but I was just like, I don't fucking want to do this. I don't care if it's the norm. Yeah. It's definitely changing now. There's like more freedom, but people are like fearful of the time they've invested and fearful of the financial side of things, but they actually neglect what's actually going to make me happy. Yeah. And I just don't get it. Like, I mean, I resonate with it, because I guess like people are doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they're at, and that is just potentially they can't see that they're just unhappy and they can actually make a change. Whereas like myself, I know you have a bunch of other people we hang out with, always tweaking little things or not afraid to cut something off and change in order to make them happy. Like, for me, I always say this, like, if this gym, I don't want to even open yet, but if it like died tomorrow, like the fucking podcast died, my coaching died, I would happily just go live on a beach somewhere and like Byron Bay and like pump beers. Yeah. Like, because that would make me happy. Yeah. Instead of
there's so much more value to happiness than an income. I mean, obviously, like, there's a level of importance to money and stuff, like, but, you know, like, I left what I thought was my dream job because I was miserable to chase something that I thought would also make me happy at a gym, which turned out the opposite, but now I'm back in that industry anyway. So, like, I completely get it. Like, same with me, if I lost my job or just, you know, something didn't align with me anymore, I'd just be like, cool. I'll find another job if I have to. Until then, I'll chill.
Yeah, things always fucking work out. Like, that is undefeated, that phrase for the most part.
Yeah.
Until you literally like pass away.
Yeah.
Like things have a way of figuring out job, relationships, money issues. Like shit just finds a way of working out. So yeah.
It's like the cliche that Gary V, right? The cliche that he says, like, we're 26, you're 28.
28, yeah.
Yeah, so like realistically, it's been a long time to get to that. Imagine what we're gonna feel like when it's 70. Like we're still young. We're still babies, really.
Yeah.
Like
I'm pretty sure Tom Clark brought this up on a call the other day, but Wim Hof only started, like, that dude's like fucking how old? 60 or 70?
Yeah.
He only started this whole thing like not that long ago, I don't think.
Yeah.
And he's massive.
Yeah, well, I think he's probably been doing it for a while.
Yeah,
but like it's
gotten main.
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah.
Like was homeless and stuff until he was like 68 or something, and when he decided to share his chicken recipe, and now, I mean, he's passed away now, but like, look at the impact he's had.
Yeah.
It's KFC.
Yeah. Kentucky freaking chicken. Yeah, like, and I guess the other thing with that is people just get so fearful of doing something different because of what someone else is gonna think about them, and it's just like, it's like a dangerous.
I remember the first time I said to Dad, I was like, because I hadn't really, like, when I opened the business, and I said to him that I wasn't living with him at the time and stuff, but I was like, I've got a business, and he was like, what? I was like, and he's like, doing what? Like something to do with like gym or PT, and I'm like, nah, photography and videos, and he was like, what the fuck? Like literally like the most dumbfounded face I think I've ever seen from him. And then he's like, what made you get into that? And I was like, I don't even have an answer for that. I like it, really. Yeah. And he's like, oh, all right, well, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I was like, cool. Good.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of like the old, like generation or two before us were like, they grew up in that very, like, this is what you do, then you do this, then you do this. So it's like if they hear, whilst they can be supportive, I know a lot of the times, like, my parents probably have always been supportive, but they'd be like, oh, okay, like, that's interesting, going to be an online coach. Like, is that like can you make a career out of that? Like, I know Ads had someone come up to her at the gym and was like, is this your job? She's like, yeah, that's what I do, but this and online. He's like, oh yeah, okay, but like, what else do you do? Like, for money, like, you have to do something. Like, coaching can't be a job. It's just such like an ingrained belief system that you have to be like a doctor or an engineer or an accountant or something. Whereas now, like, our generation's a lot more creative and with social media and stuff like that.
It's weird.
Crazy.
Especially like the social media side of things, like, without being arrogant, is probably like a strong point of mine. Yeah. I was at the point after 6 months, like, I could have earned money from YouTube. Like, you hit 1,000 subs, you just have to get your viewer time up and stuff. Yeah. And when I told that to, I think it might have been Chelsea, or it might have been like Dad or Belle, can't remember who it was. They were like, what? Like, you can earn money from views. It probably wasn't Chelsea, thinking how, like, the age difference probably wasn't Chelsea. And I was like, like, it's pretty weird. Like, and then, you know, the amount of people that, you know, I speak to around the food page being like, do you get paid for this? And because like, you go to one place and post 6 times on your story and then make 2 or 3 posts about the food you've bought, and then you put it on TikTok, which average anywhere between like 80,000 to 400,000 views, and like, crazy. You know, like, what do you actually get out of it? And I was like, I eat pretty good food. Like, that's it. So it's a complete odd time, and it's not odd to me, but like for them to look down on us, or to look back at us being like, but who would have thought, right? Like, it's very much a digital age.
You can literally, fucking make money from eating food. Like, are you kidding me? Like, imagine if you told them that like 50 years ago.
I know. And it's like, I mean, like, sponsorships, people, a lot of like new places will be like, hey, we're creating a new product, come try it, we'll let you try it for a post. Like, all right, cool. A lot of places I don't accept a lot of places' money, because they're like, oh, we'll pay you to come and do this. And I'm like, you're a small business in the current climate circumstance. Like,
you feel like you'd have to give them a good review too.
So that's why I don't. I'm like, let me pay for it. If you're not willing to give me full price, like, can understand that, because it is going to give you some marketing. It's like, but I want to pay for it because I'm going to give you feedback. And you might not like the feedback if I don't like the food.
Had a few of those that didn't like your feedback.
I've ruined some people. But again, with the whole like inner work learnings, with the food page stuff, I learnt the importance of feedback to them directly before publicly. So I did a post with a place that could have very well made me sick if I was allergic to anything, and it was one of the worst pieces of the worst burger I've probably consumed ever. And I tried to give them feedback, and I messaged them and be like, hey, I've eaten one of your burgers, are you open to feedback? And they saw the message and never responded, and like it just pissed me off. So I posted it, and then it blew up. Like, so when I posted it, there was like 58 shares on the post, something like 68 saves, and like 60 comments, but they were all from that shop staff members trying to defend the place, saying how good it was.
Yeah, right.
And you just read my comments being like, yeah, but you're the one that served me, or like you were the one cooking it. Like, you can't say this. Like, but I learned from that, like, always message the feedback first. If they've been receptive, don't post, give them the chance, because especially with COVID, like the restrictions and stuff on them, plus like how much business, and everyone's been impacted financially, like, well, depending, they've obviously copped a lot. And then someone like myself or any foodie or anyone then going on a public post, and even if only 10 people don't buy it, to them that could be $300. Like, you know, so I always try and give a level of feedback that's like, yo, this is what was really, really good, and this is what I would change, just from my personal experience. I only really do that with burgers because I've gone to 70 something burger joints in Adelaide alone. But yeah, that's like the inner work that I've done, obviously, with Jacob and all of that, and all of that's taught me to be more like calm in my approach in a lot of situations. Otherwise I would just ruin a lot of businesses.
That could be a full ego thing too, just ripping motherfuckers online. For your benefit.
And that's not what it was ever about. And then it was the same with the food page. So like I said earlier, the page was called Kobe's Food Adventures. It's now called Sammy Dyer Eats. And the reason that I changed that was the name no longer served me a purpose. I was relying on the name and relying on Kobe to make something of it. But what was happening is I was going to places to eat, people were calling me Kobe and getting to know me as if I was Kobe. And then it got worse and worse. And then I had a TikTok that went really, really well, and I gained 600 followers on Instagram from the TikTok. And 2 weeks prior to his 2-year anniversary last year, every single day for 2 weeks, at work, on my lunch break in the shopping centres, like down south, even though I'm from north, people coming up to me being like, yo, Kobe. That sucked. And it just got to the point, and probably could have changed the approach of it. I took a week break first and was like, I'm stepping back from the page. This is what's going on. I had a food place make a full Kobe menu and try and drop it for me to market, and I've never even heard of the place or been to the place before, which didn't sit right with me. So I took a week break and then did some work around the purpose of the page with Jacob and stuff, and was like, there's more to it than just what it holds to me. Like, I'll always do it and what Kobe and I had planned, but it's now become about keeping his name alive rather than doing it to, you know, keep him with me. So I do everything, like everything I still do when it comes to training and the food stuff, keeps him with me, but it's no longer to honour him in the sense, like I do it to, I don't know if that's the right word, but I honour him, but it's not just for Kobe anymore. Like it helps support so many more people on such a larger scale rather than just putting Kobe's name out there. Don't get me wrong, if I do a custom burger at any place, if they put it on the menu, it's always going to be called the Kobe. It's got a meaty ring to it, and it's like been really successful at the 2 places so far, so that'll always be there. But I can't mentally deal with being called Kobe and then having to explain the story of the Seaton and the seafood thing every single week when I was going out to eat, before it's like, yo, I'm not in a good place. I now no longer love food. That's where it was at, and that's why that name change kind of came out from that. So well, you know that you're honouring Kobe when you eat, and it's like, as long as you know that and like cherish that, then no one else that's
really
it.
Needs to.
And it caused a ruckus. A lot of people, family, friends of more than anything, were all like, oh, you've used his name to just get your own benefit. And I'm like, dude, like it was bad. And one of the comments, I'm not going to mention the person's name, but they were like, oh, how fucking dare you, all of this. And I kind of sat there being like, me making a change to the page based off of my mental health, for you to comment this based off of you being in a mental health hospital after an attempt, like, I mean, that's pretty rough, don't you think? And then I got blocked by everyone because of that response, which in the end to me is a major loss, because they failed to ask me what the purpose or like why I did it. And realistically, even with Kobe here, it was still my idea to help us rather than to, but like, it just failed the purpose for me anymore, and it sucked. Whereas now there's a bigger picture to it, like I said, supporting businesses who might not be able to get much leverage based off of their own marketing techniques or whatever, but it's food, man. It brings so many people together, so
that's what I'm missing the whole point. It's the whole point.
That's it,
It's not like you're making major bank from it either. Like,
I'm literally making nothing. Like
even the shirts you did, it was made to order, so people would pay.
Yeah, and they would pay $2 above cost, and I would deliver it via hand. Yeah. So the $2 above cost was my petrol.
Time,
that's it. Yeah. And I've got shirts and stuff that I want to remake, but I don't see the purpose to have a full branding anything anymore. It's not about the merch. It was never meant to be about the merch or whatever. I did it because there was a lot of his family that wanted the stuff, and I was like, yeah, cool. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. But with the new stuff, I'd like other people to have it, but it would be people like yourself. Like, I'll make 10 of them and give it to people that have supported it without having them pay. So Beefcakes and Shakes, Cheesy Charlies, the guys that have been like day ones with the page and understood the assignment, as much as that's like such a TikTok saying. Like that, it's more about like, you've supported me, I want you to have this. Like, I appreciate your support for what the page is meant to be. So
makes sense. Makes sense. Let's finish this bad boy with a really hard-hitting question. Right, you ready?
Yep.
Top 3 burgers in Adelaide.
Oh, that's top 3 burger joints or burgers? Because you gotta remember, I've eaten a lot of burger joints and a lot of burgers from each place, because I eat 2 per place pretty much every time I go.
Alright, so let's go top 3 burger joints.
Yep.
And then let's go top 3, like, alright, you get to eat your 3 favourite meals today, like out, and what would they be? So top 3 burger joints.
I can't pick them in order because they're all at really peak levels in Adelaide for different reasons. But
controversial, okay.
Beefcakes and Shakes, Burger Incredible, Stacks every day of the week.
Okay.
Top 3, hands down. Beefcakes and Shakes, the atmosphere is really, really good. They're also super receptive of me just going there and picking their menu apart to create whatever the fuck I want. Like putting Nutella on a cheeseburger. That wasn't a good experience.
Beefcake Shakes, we did the first Kobe, like that real big fuck off meat thing.
Yeah, double beef, chicken, mac and cheese, bacon, mumbo sauce.
Is it still there?
Yeah, so you can still get the original, but they've got a Kobe 2.0, which now has I don't want that one. Pork and
that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so that's the new one, which is the 2.0.
Yeah.
They made that with Juicy J's.
Yeah.
So it's still my creation, but they like approached me like, we want to keep the name because it's pretty much the same. It's just got a few additives. I'm like, as long as I'm the one who gets to taste test it and I approve of it, cool. Yeah. And they're like, of course. Yeah. So Burger Incredible.
Where are they?
Unley Road.
Okay.
They've only been open since December 2020, and I went there and had their CEO burgers, their biggest burger, and they didn't know who I was when I went there, and they saw me set up my tripod and get the biggest burger and time myself eat it and finish the biggest thing in like 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Not fucking surprised.
And Johnny, the owner, was like, "What the fuck?" And he'd come out and be like, "Yo, do you do this stuff?" And I'm like,
first time.
Like, this is my page. And then, so they've been really, really receptive of it as well. But their quality, like, they went from, like, I'd say an 8 out of 10, which is still, like, really, really good considering. And now they're, like, smashing everything out the park. Okay. And their burgers of the months and, like, their monthly specials are really, really cool as well. And then Stacks, quality and, like, basic, like, general menu, best as well.
So are they in Port Road or not? Am I making that
Stacks?
Up? Yeah.
Nah, Prospect.
Prospect.
Yeah, so they started in Mount Gambier, Gambia? Yeah, they started in Gambia, moved the shop to Prospect. Gambia started to drop. So I think he moved all the staff from Gambia down to Prospect and like paid for them to all live out here. And I think they're now branching out March 1st to be in Golden Grove.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sick. Okay.
Yeah.
And then your 3 favourite like meals. So it's gonna be like a combo, like if you had to pick your 3 favourite.
And that's from any place that I've eaten. Number 1 place that I've eaten anywhere in Adelaide, Simply Sarge.
Or the world. Let's branch that shit out.
Okay. So for out of the ones that I've eaten though, Simply Sarge is an all vegan place in the Central Market. And that shit blew my mind. Like, on a level of, like, I'm not anti-vegan, but I wouldn't do it. Like, that food was incredible.
What did you have?
Oh, dude, like, everything. Like, it's Thai-based food, but they had, like, sweet potato donuts, like, it just slapped. I think, we were talking about it when you had and you had the Zipperly in front of me. Yeah. Bastard.
It wasn't that good.
But yeah, that place was, like, seriously good.
Yeah, right.
If I was to go anywhere, though, New Orleans would be one. Their beignet I really, really want to try, which is like a donut.
As in you'd like to go to New Orleans, Louisiana in America?
Yeah, so I've been to America before, but like my thing now is food. Like I get a lot out of food, not even just eating, but connecting with people. Like the conversations I have with Cheesy Charlie's, I mean even Jamie from Beefcakes, like all of the owners of the shops, they all know me like so well that the level of deep conversations and stuff and connections that I build, it's so much, holds a lot of value to me. So I want to learn about the culture of food elsewhere. And that's like the only place that I can think like from right now. I'm like, if I could book a flight in 10 minutes, I'm going. Like that's like it.
Slow cooked meat and shit.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Go down. Like, what's the street called? It's that one street in New Orleans.
I know the one you're talking about because it was on a movie called Chef, and because the movie Chef, right? It's all it's all the actors from Avengers and stuff, right? So Robert Downey Jr. is in it. Sofia Vergara, is it Sofia Vergara?
Bourbon Street.
Yeah, Street. And then Happy from the Avengers, he's the main character, so he's the main chef. So that's a really cool movie. Yeah, cool. It's probably one of my all-time favorites, other than Kung Fu. Yeah. But yeah, so that's like where that stemmed from. But it's just I would go anywhere to eat anything, like just to learn a little bit about the people and the cultural, like the culture. So like at the moment, I'm obsessed with a movie called Uncharted by Gordon Ramsay, where he literally travels to places for a week and eats with like one of their most famous or most successful chefs. Then he has to go out and learn about their culture and cooking in their cultural like manners and stuff. And then he competes against the chef at the end of the week. So he went to Tasmania, and I was like, shit, I didn't even know there was that stuff in Tasmania. And then he went to some place in Peru where he was at a potato farm, and they pulled out purple potatoes based off of the altitude of the area. And I was like, yo, like I want to do that. So I couldn't give you 3 places that I must eat. Other like America's one, because there's so much different cultural base. I actually wouldn't mind maybe somewhere like Afghanistan too. Like their food is like, it's very like meat and rice based, but that's good. Yeah. And then I mean like, I'd be lying if I didn't say Italy, because I mean pasta and pizza, but like you know, but there's Greek. Like
have you eaten that? Is it Parwana?
No, I only heard of it the last few weeks.
Oh fuck me!
Because like the whole
Parwana Afghan Kitchen on Henley Beach Road.
Oh yeah, like I've made the page religious about burgers for the first year, and now I'm like, I only crave burgers once every 2 or 3 months. So I'm like, when I crave burgers, I'll have 4 on that day. But until then, I'll go out once a week and eat like, I don't know, like just anything other than
giant snitties. Had a phase there. Have you done Setabello, like literally across the road?
No, I'm waiting for me to no longer be shredding before we do that.
Okay, we'll do that at the end.
But like, you know, there's just so much to learn, like from food, and it's not even just about that. It's the food, the way that people connect with it, like. Like every Cheesy Charlie's visit, I've been there for 90 plus minutes. Barossa Brown's Donuts, like the first 2 times I went there and did TikToks, they blew up. The 3rd time I went, I spoke to the actual owner, and he was telling me how he traveled the world for 10 years to formulate the best possible donut recipe for him to create it in the Barossa. And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't expect that. So that was like a really cool story. So yeah, right. Yeah. So the food holds like so much value for me. So.
Making me hungry.
Yeah, I know, same.
Let's go across the road for a giant. I know you're cutting.
I mean, if you approve it.
No, we're hitting lows fucking day after day.
Oh, yeah, we won't talk about this morning's, mate. Yeah.
It's alright. It'll be a repeat coming soon.
Yes.
Anyway, alright, I reckon that's a good place to wrap it up on a high note. First of all, thank you for going into depth in the first 3/4 of that episode.
That's alright.
Really appreciate
How long did we go for?
We're at now 20.
Oh, 6.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, right.
Like, intention with getting Sammy on was to show what someone can overcome and still, like, just keep on keeping on. Like, you're going to have your down days, you're going to have your good days, but, like, in fact, you're still here talking about it openly and admitting you have not so great days, but then also, like, just being a happy bubbly dude is a fucking credit to you.
And before we wrap it up, I want to say a thank you to you. This is kind of the momentum behind the rock image that I gave you, but if it wasn't for the conversation that I had with you in 2020, I never would have connected with Jake, therefore never would have had a business to meet Phoebe, therefore never would have worked with Tom Clark, and therefore never would have progressed to the level that I have as well. So that stemmed from our conversation last time.
Sick.
So for that, I thank you as well. So
no worries.
Yeah, I said the same thing to Clark. I was like, bro, if it wasn't for Hobbsy, I never would have transformed the way that I have. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
I
so
appreciate
thank
that.
you for
Getting
that as well.
goosebumps.
So
that's cool.
That's all right.
Nah, I was thinking we've got such a cool circle here. Well, in Adelaide, and then now like Vic, New South Wales, just like blokes that, all not just blokes, like females as well. There's just everyone's got each other's back, and it's like the whole reason doing this fucking gym is to have a facility like this. People can come and
it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, spread this message, and I don't know, have blokes like yourself on come in, open up, and just set the example for other blokes that might. Have some resistance towards opening up and getting a bit feely and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's...
If anyone that trains here wants help with their content, just flick me a message too.
Sam's basically going to have like free reign on this place for anyone that wants to do some sick content. And
even if you create for yourself and you want help, I guess a little bit of guidance on how to create maybe better or to a style that suits you. Flick me a message. I'm all cool. I'll come down for an hour.
Plug your socials and whatnot.
Sammy D Eats for the fat life, and then Sammy Dyer _ I think on my normal Instagram. But I mean, you can find the normal Instagram and find the
I'll link
anyway,
it. I'll link it down below anyway.
Yeah.
Do you still do any? Is YouTube stuff still up?
When I'm no longer shredding, I'm going to utilize that for the food stuff again, but it'll be more so to help promote businesses on a different level and almost do it like a Netflix series kind of thing. Like a breakdown of, like I just said with Barossa Browns, like I want to see if they'd be cool to sit down with me for 10 minutes and chat about it while I go over cinematics of the place and the food. And I want to switch it up to be a bit more different. So
get Netflix to buy your shit.
Maybe one day. That'd be pretty gnarly.
Love that. Well, thanks again, man. Appreciate you jumping on board. Appreciate everyone listening as well. If you haven't already, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, because as you heard, you start getting paid at 1,000 subs. So I think I'm at
get that watch time.
Like 75. So this will help with watch time. Hey,
if you
we're
watch
like nearly an hour and a half. Give the video a like, and then if you guys got any feedback for us, you got any questions for us as well, jump into either of our DMs. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.